Good morning, everyone. What a crowd. Andrew, you're quite popular. He's very excited. My name is Chris Lanigan, and welcome to the 16th Annual Savannah Book Festival. This year's festival is presented by the Philip E. and Nancy B. Beekman Foundation, David and Nancy Centrone, Robert Faircloth, the Courtney Knight Gaines Foundation, and the Gerald D. and Helen M. Stevens Foundation, with a special thanks to a grant from Georgia Humanities. We are especially grateful to John and Fran Kane for sponsoring the Jepson Nices Auditorium today. And last session, we actually saw a picture of them. Our author knew them. We'd also like to welcome our generous sponsors and literati members. It is through your support that we are able to make festival events this Saturday free to the public. 90% of our revenue comes from you, and we thank you. This year's festival is full of lots of great events and authors. If you haven't done so, you can download the app. Directions are on the back of your program. And before I get started, a few housekeeping notes. Andrew Sean Greer will be signing festival purchase copies of his book in Telfair Square, and somebody gets a special signing in this audience. If you are planning to stay to hear Patricia Schultz, please move forward at the end of this presentation. Cell phones off if you haven't already done so, and we ask that you do not use flash photography. On the back of your program, there is a QR code for a survey. Please take a moment to share your opinion so we know how to make improvements for next year. This also helps gauge the impact of our festival on the city of Savannah, and your response is important to the funding of the arts in our community. Later, as you exit the venue, you will see our wonderful volunteers holding yellow buckets. We hope you will consider making a donation to the book festival. And Lisa, would you like to come up and say a few words? Lisa is one of our board members.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Lisa Yount, as she mentioned. How many of you have been to the festival before? Okay, all right, so you know it's unusual for a board member to stand between you and one of our Saturday authors. So just to reiterate some of what you've heard already, it's extraordinary times, right? So that's why I'm here. The cost of everything has gone up. I know you felt the burn of inflation, and so has the book festival. And so I'm here to ask on behalf of the board of directors for you to help us continue to give this wonderful gift to the Savannah community as we do every year, and our out-of-town visitors too. You know, with the cost of inflation going up, the cost of the book festival has gone up, transportation for our authors, tent rental, venue rental, all of it has gone up significantly while our income has kind of stayed flat. And so please help us. On the back, there's a blue QR code, and if you could Venmo us some cash. And if I could tell my board chair that those Venmos came in at this time, I could say I was winning as the board member who got the most donations during my little pitch. So anyway, that's all. I just wanted to thank you for being here. Please help us continue to give the festival in the way that we do for free on Saturdays with so many great authors, because if we don't have the cash, we've got to scale down, and we don't want to see that at all, right? So, all right, thank you, Andrew. Come on up. I'm sorry. Thanks for my pitch.
One second. Wait, he still needs an introduction.
Oh, wait, sorry. I feel so bad about taking your space.
I know,
okay,
but we haven't heard how fabulous Andrew is. So we will have time for some Q&A at the end of Andrew's talk. And Andrew is with us today courtesy of an anonymous donor. So Andrew is quite a celebrated author. He is the Pulitzer Prize-winning author of 6 works of fiction, including the bestsellers The Confessions of Max Tivoli and Less, Greer has taught at a number of universities, including the Iowa Writers Workshop, been a Today Show pick, a New York Public Library Coleman Center Fellow, a judge for the National Book Award, and a winner of both the California Book Award and the New York Public Library Young Lions Award. He is the recipient of an NEA grant, a Guggenheim Fellowship, and the 2018 Pulitzer Prize for Fiction. He lives in San Francisco, and we are in for a treat today. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Chris. And you guys all should, as I natter on, you should really try out that blue code. You just never know what's going to happen. You know, if everyone gave like $5 right now, I think she could keep her job. Just while it's happening. I'm probably just going to sort of like wander on and talk about things for half an hour, and then I'm going to answer questions. I'm better at that part. So while you're bored of me talking, think of a question, because I'm a teacher too, as you heard. So I know to tell students to think of something else while I'm talking, so that when it's their turn, they have something to say. Otherwise, there's an uncomfortable silence, and I'm very patient with that silence. I have been, let me make sure I know what time it is, 10:21. All right. The last time I was in Savannah, I've only been here once before, even though I have relatives here. I have a cousin, Ryan Trossel, who lives here part of the time, and my aunt, Ella Jean Trossel, lives in Hilton Head, but neither of them are here right now, so I don't get to see them. But that's why I came the last time. I looked at my phone, it was October 2019, and what I was doing was I was doing research for this very book. And this copy it's Dinara? Yes. Yeah, Dinara loaned me this copy. So thank you very much. I don't really travel with hardcover books, you know. But let me tell you what I was doing here, because this was the end of my trip. And I guess a lot of people are probably curious about where books come from. And I would say that for me, they come from, even though these are comedies, they come from my deepest fears. I mean, that's where comedy kind of comes from, anyway. And for Les, it was the fear of turning 50, which I've already gone through. It went fine. I don't know what I was so worried about. And for this one, I'll tell you, it was, I started thinking about this book in 2016, November 2016. You might recall there was a presidential election around that time. And many were surprised at the result. Whichever side you were on, you could probably agree about that. And I was not on the team that won. And I did some soul searching. And I was like, I think I don't understand, I apparently don't understand the country completely, you know? And what am I afraid of? What do I want to write about? And the answer came, Alabama. Alabama. I am utterly ignorant of Alabama, and I seem to have an irrational fear of it. So, why don't I go? So I did what any normal person would do with a Guggenheim grant. Thank you, Guggenheim Foundation. I rented a camper van. I took 2 trips. The first I went to the Southwest, actually, because that was a trial trip. I could drive there from California. And then, 2019, I rented a camper van in Atlanta, Georgia. There was a guy who like fixes them up himself, and it was like really had like a fake hanging plant in a macrame holder. It was like fairy lights that would go on. I mean, it was really sweet. So I got and I headed straight for Alabama. My family is from the South, but not the deep South. South Carolina. You probably doesn't even count to you, right? Yeah. But so my mother was really worried for me. she was worried. Well, she thought, first of all, she said, now you should say sir and ma'am every single sentence. That will get you halfway there. And after that, honey, could you maybe dress down a little? Because like, for me, this is like a very ordinary outfit, even with the like Charles Nelson Riley kind of look going on. But I'm not particularly hiding my personality, you know, which is what, and I was like, I get you. Now, she had not been in the South for 20 years or something, and I certainly hadn't. And so she had sort of a terrified idea, I guess, for me, protective of me. So what I did was I went to a Walmart, I forget where in Alabama. I went to a Walmart, and I got like a big T-shirt with a country western star on it, who I didn't know, and cargo shorts and flip-flops and like a baseball cap and like those sunglasses that no homosexual would wear, that wrap all the way around, and some American flags that I put all over the van, and I was like, the disguise is complete. They'll never know. And the really charming thing was, and this is of course what you learn when you travel, is that the prejudices are mostly your own. You know, I went to a very local bar outside Muscle Shoals called Stagger Lee. And that was I kind of walked in my way and sat down at the bar, and I saw what other people were drinking, and I was like, Bud Light, I think, not a martini, but I'll get Bud Light. The charming thing was like, I didn't fool anybody the whole trip. You know, like the bartender, she said she was a beer tender, 'cause she couldn't make a mixed drink. She was like, honey, we love every kind of person here. And that was true like everywhere I went. I was really like, didn't fool anybody. Everyone was super nice to me. Also, I had somehow had the idea that like gay people were only in big cities or something, like Savannah for sure. But also like, there was like lesbians making paninis in a small Alabama town. Like shaved head tattooed lesbians. And I was like, I guess it's not the 90s anymore. Like, we're all everywhere, and I was totally wrong. And what I did for this book was what I did for Les, which was that my rule for myself was that I couldn't put in any detail that I didn't write down in my notebook, because what I didn't want to do for that book was to write some kind of fantasy, because he goes to like India and places where it'd be easy to be like, like make up a Orientalist fantasy of a place that isn't true. And what I was more interested in is my prejudices and preconceptions as an American traveling, and what I get wrong when you actually get there, and what's unexpected. Like when I went to Morocco, and I didn't expect there to be like a ski chalet. It's not what you're thinking camels, but actually I did end up in a ski chalet in the snow, and I was like, that has to go in the book because I was dead wrong. I mean, there's mountains. Of course there are, and there's snow, and they ski. And I wanted to do the same thing with the United States. That's what I wanted to do, because I was like, if I don't understand something, I'm open to being wrong, and I was dead wrong all the time. So I was taking notes all the time. And I took notes on Savannah. I got here at the very end of my trip. I looped all around, which is not the journey that he takes. But I had the rule of only taking notes, and the other rule was that I could only stop in small towns, not cities. Savannah was an exception, but it's not Atlanta. I wasn't going to go there. I was trying to stop in places that you would normally are not on the freeway, that kind of thing, and that I had to go in bars and diners and sit at the counter and talk to the people working there and the people next to me, and get their stories, none of which are in the book. I didn't put their stories in the book, but I just wanted to see what there was, because I didn't know what book I was going to write. Because actually, when you travel, it's not particularly funny, what's happening. Like I got to Savannah, and I stayed with a friend of my cousins, and like his group of gay friends, and I had to park my RV like right here somewhere. I don't know how I did it, but it worked out. I somehow didn't get a ticket or something, and they took me out to like a couple bars. Like they all seem to have the word pink in them. There's the Pink House, and then there's Pinkies. Yeah, I was in both of those last night too. Charming city. And they took me to like some rooftop place, and I'm taking notes, and I'm like, none of this is funny. This is just like nice, but there was the comedy. I'm like, oh, there's oyster shells in the sidewalks, and it's rainy, and there's Spanish moss, but I knew that. Like, that's not going to make it into a book. And then I was going to spend the night with my Aunt Ella Jean in Hilton Head. And, well, I'm going to read it to you, because I wrote down exactly what happened. This is near the end of the book, so if some of it doesn't make sense, too bad. You'll get the idea. He's trying to see his father, who lives in Hilton Head. There is not much to see from Savannah across to the island at night. Unlike the back roads he's been taking, the highway is so featureless that Les imagines he has entered some alien simulation until he feels himself rising over a bridge and sees the signs for sea pines. Anyone from Sea Pines here? Okay. Without realizing, Les has passed from the land of cotton to rice. When the rain stops, he pulls over and changes out of his soaked suit jacket and shirt into the only clothing he can find, his mud-spattered poncho. It will have to do. He takes the exit and approaches an entrance gate guarded at this hour by a woman in a white shirt with the nameplate Starlet. With her platinum blonde hair, Marcel waved, and the beauty spot above her left eye, the black woman indeed looks like a starlet. I'm sorry, sir, no RVs or campers allowed on this island. What's that? He asks. Starlet leans out of her shed. No RVs or campers allowed. But I'm going to see my dad. He lives here. This is just my car. I understand, sir, but your vehicle can't go any further than this gate. This is the exact dialogue that happened to me. Her name was not Starlet. I can't drive to his house? No, sir. Can I park it here and have him drive me to his house? Absolutely not. No, sir. Why? That is the island policy. But why? Do you live here, ma'am? Starlet laughs. No, sir, I do not. The moss from the trees shimmers around them like tinsel hanging in an auditorium. He looks up at the guard and asks, if you were me, ma'am, what would you do? The beauty mark above her left eye lifts with her brow. Starlet looks at him intently, then slowly closes her eyes and opens them. Well, I'd call my dad, she says quietly. Les is game. Okay, let's call him. She laughs. I mean, your dad. Well, I know this sounds weird, ma'am, but I don't have his number. I'll look it up. You could also call the 2 RV parks on the island, Starlet adds, gesturing to where he exited the highway. Maybe they have space, and he could pick you up? Thank you, that's a great idea. But at the first park, he is informed that while they do indeed have space, they only accept RVs with black water, meaning RVs with a toilet. Why? Don't you have toilets? Les asks, mystified. It's as if Noah's Ark allowed tyrannosaurs but not chickens. He is told that it is the island policy. The second park happily not only has space but accepts chickens. However, it is age qualified. Les asks what that means. Well, sir, are you older than 55? Les says that he is not. Oh, I'm sorry, sir, but you'll have to find another place to stay. The resort is only for mature adults. It's also the island policy. In one place, he has the wrong plumbing, and the other, the wrong birthday. He wonders how he got lost in this maze of exclusions and how he might find a secret passage. Then he glimpses himself in the rearview mirror, muddy poncho, neat blonde mustache. There is no secret passage. He is precisely who is meant to be excluded. Sir, Starlet calls to him, I don't find an owner named Lawrence Less. He doesn't live here? Now, could be he's a guest to somebody? Oh, Wanda, Les says, Wanda, somebody. She laughs again, cool, clear water. Oh, my friend, everybody in this damn place is named Wanda. It was a frustrating night for me. What ended up happening is my Aunt Ella Jean drove out, and we went to now I'm forgetting the name of the grocery stores you have out here. Yeah, you've all said a million things. Starts with an R. I think it was Ralph's. It was Ralph's. Okay. No, it wasn't like I would remember Piggly Wiggly. Thank you. Yeah, it was a Ralph's, and she went in there and she talked to the manager, and she said, now, I am a good customer here for 40 years, and we need to park an RV out here. He's like, oh, man, we can't do that. And she's like, I think you can. And so they let me park it wasn't even an RV, it was a camper van, like a van. And, but because it was clearly you could sleep in it, it wasn't allowed. So I parked it around back behind the dumpster, and she drove me, and I stayed in her place. And that was our workaround, but only because she was a strong Southern lady. Like, I wasn't going to go do that at Ralph's. And I spent a spooky night because she had a mannequin with her wedding dress in the bedroom where I was staying, and I would just wake up and see this figure standing beside the bed all night. And I went on from there, and the last place I went to was Hunting Island, South Carolina, but basically the same thing. And I was there for 4 nights because it was the most fascinating place I'd been to yet. But it's not in the book. It's in the book barely. But because it's the only place that was owned by African Americans after the Civil War, and they owned that property and made it their own world, I was like, this is not for me to write about. This is someone else's story. So I'll stay out of it. But I do have him. I did weather a hurricane. I wondered why there was such a good parking spot. And it was me and the ranger, and the ranger came over and was like, now, are you sure you want to stay here? And I'm like, I don't have another option. He's like, okay, here's what you're going to do. You need to repark your car facing the wind, because otherwise you're going to be taken away to sea. And it worked, but it was a shaky, shaky night. So I have that. Oh, maybe I'll read that too. Maybe that's fun. I never get to read these parts because I haven't been to Savannah. Because that's the end of a section, because it really felt like the end of the world. Let's see if I can read it without too much. Well, anyway, he's carrying, what's happening in this chapter is that there's a theater troupe that's performing a story of his, and they've invited him to come along for an amount of money, and he's really desperate for money. But he has to carry the set to the theater piece in his van. And so that's what's happening. It's based on a moment I had actually traveling with the theater company in France, where we had to carry the set on a train, which is illegal. So when the conductor would come through saying billet or whatever the word is for tickets, we'd all go into the bathrooms. And I was in charge of a tree. And we'd all just get in the bathrooms with my tree. And I couldn't quite reproduce that here, so instead I put it in the van. Outside his eastern window, a flash of lightning illuminates the tableau, the set, and St. Joseph. This rude sudden light confers on these mute objects everything the labors of the theater have not, namely the magic light of reality. For it is only in this instant, and not as he had hoped during beloved performances, that they come to life. The trees, the shrubs, the very saint that stood near his childhood home, St. Joseph, whom his neighbors, the reeds, implanted in their front yard and decorated with pastel eggs one sunny Easter. And of course, it is only in this moment of rebirth at which he gasps that less is treated to its twin, destruction. For he is witness as one by one, the hurricane plucks the pieces of his childhood from the earth and hurls them into his own maw, devouring them. And Arthur Less is merely a witness as the dogwood tree decorating his curb is taken skyward, and then the shrubs lining the drive, and then at last, after a pause during which the hurricane considers whether to have an entree after all, St. Joseph swivels sideways in the mud, and with a final glance at our hero, is raptured heavenward at last. The air stills. The eye of the hurricane has arrived, pretending that we are only at intermission and worse is still to come. In what is perhaps his final motion on this earth, Les leans forward to peer through the windshield, and there he sees, within the eye, as through a porthole, a constellation. And here, for the moment, we must leave him. I just love doing that as an author. It's great fun. I'm going to answer some questions now, if that's all right. Just because I like that better than, you know, like if you're at a dinner party and you just keep talking and talking, that feels very rude. So I'm going to pretend to listen for part of it, yeah.
Okay, hold on, let's get,
Oh.
one second. There's one right down here.
I loved both your Les books.
Oh, good.
And I loved it. I just finished the Les is Lost this week, and I was so happy to see he had come to Savannah. So that was really interesting. But I wonder why you decided to tell it through the eyes of his partner, who is in Maine, and how hard that was because his partner didn't know everything that happened, and how you made the transition from what his partner did know through the phone calls that they had versus things like what happened in the hurricane when his partner wasn't there. That would be very difficult to manage. I just wonder why you made that decision.
You have a very practical mind. I understand. My mother has asked the same question. The story is told not from his point of view, you can tell, and not from an omniscient narrator, but from his boyfriend, Freddie. And it's my idea that Freddie, that Les later tells him about his trip, and that Freddie imagines his way into all of this. That, in fact, even though Arthur Less is the novelist, Freddie's a better writer and has a greater imagination and empathy and love for this person that he can sort of make up the little bits. That's what I told myself. But the reason I did it is because it's a delicious way to write a book, because you get everything all together. You get an omniscient narrative voice that can talk about the hurricane, and you get, you're privy to the private thoughts of someone, even though they're imagined, and it's also a first person, so that Freddie, because the next chapter is Freddie's point of view, and Les is off screen. So you get to do everything a writer would want to do, because each of these things, now this is a very technical answer, each of these points of view has its pluses and minuses. Like a first-person point of view is great because the reader feels close to the narrator. Immediately you get that sort of empathy and connection, but you're trapped in one person's point of view, which is always faulty and can feel. And so sometimes the solution is to create distance, to put it in the far past so that the person is talking about their younger self, and you actually have two characters. One is the narrator and then their younger self doing the action. That's like a solution to it. But omniscient narrator is uncommon these days, like a Victorian way to tell things, because it's so cold. It feels like this sort of godlike person moving things around, but it's so fun as a writer. That's what you really want to do. So I like the idea of wouldn't we all like to do that with our loved ones? You know, tell their story for them. And the last thing is, I thought very much of Gertrude Stein. She wrote a book called The Autobiography of Alice B. Toklas. Of course, pretending to be Alice B. Toklas. And at the end, she's like, you know what? She's never going to write that book. So I decided I would write it for her. And this is it. Yeah.
I'm from Alabama.
Oh!
I just want to say that you're welcome anytime. I was thrilled to read the part about visiting Muscle Shoals, so that was a surprise to me when I read the book. It was really great.
Oh, good.
But I also read an interview with you that said that there would be no more Arthur Less books, and I just wondered if that's correct or is it a possibility?
I'm so glad you like that section. That is, again, I wrote down almost exactly what happened to me in that bar. I didn't have a dog with me, so that's invented. But she did give me a quarter to pick a song on the jukebox, and I did pick Rednecker Than You. I was like, I don't know any of these songs. I'm gonna pick the most offensive one to this particular crowd. Let's see how it goes. And they loved it. And people did tell me sort of their broken dreams in that place. It was really a moving experience. But I did leave around 8:15 before things got too wild. Is there going to be another lesson? I'm always touched when people are like, I read an interview about you. I'm like, I haven't read an interview about you. It doesn't seem fair. I say that because Less is Lost, I wrote because I could tell I wasn't done with the character yet, even though Less has a definite ending. Like, that's a complete book. I just didn't feel done, which is often how you feel after a novel, and you just have to get it out of your system and move into the next one. But I couldn't get it out of my system, and I just wanted to write more. It was such a fun way to write. I don't feel that way right now. I am working on a totally different book. So that instinct is not there for me. I also can't imagine where it'd go, outer space. But it might in the future occur to me. So there must be a sports term for when you pass a ball to another player or something, right? I'm not a sports person. So I'm passing it to my future self when I don't have an idea, when it occurs to me that I need to write about Arthur Less again. You know? Fair enough?
Well, Arthur Less is one of the most endearing characters of modern fiction, so I hope you'll reconsider that. But
strong statement, madam.
I have never been in the company of a Pulitzer Prize winner before, so I'm really curious. How do they let you know? Did you know you were under consideration? What was your initial reaction?
I love to answer this question. I'll give a rather long answer, if it's okay. In 2018, I was working, I had taken a job outside of Florence, Italy, as director of an artist residency. Strange. Working for a 90-year-old baronessa in her house outside of, and director really meant taking care of her incontinent pug. Mostly what the job entailed. And that night, I didn't know when the Pulitzer Prizes were. I can tell you now, it's I think, April 16th. But I sure had not a thought in my head about any of that happening. And also, I was 6 hours distant from New York time zone. So apparently, it's announced at a luncheon in New York. I learned that day. And they don't call you. They just announce it. Anyway, so I was not looking at my phone very much because we were in rural Italy and I had like a different number, and anyway, the internet didn't work out there, so I wasn't paying very much attention. And what I was paying attention to was the pug, because I ordered some diapers from China. Because the problem is pugs don't have waists, so normal diapers don't work on them, so I got ones with suspenders. And they're very stubborn creatures, and so are baronessas. And I had to convince both of them that this was the right thing to do, because Margaret Atwood was coming, and we weren't going to have pug poop at the dinner table, not while I was director. So I had gotten the dog into the diapers, and I'd gotten the whole package into the Baroness's bed with her, and said goodnight to them, and was going downstairs, and my boyfriend Enrico was visiting me at the time. He lives in Milan, but he showed me his phone, and it was a headline from this, not the top headline, obviously, of the San Francisco Chronicle, and said, "Local author Greer wins Pulitzer Prize." And it's like 10 at night for me. And I just said, well, that is just not true. I mean, what the hell? I mean, anyone can write anything in any font. It's just, I don't know who sent it to him. I was like, wouldn't it be funny if this were true? And then I looked at my phone, which I had looked at for hours and hours, and I had a million messages, text messages that were all like, dancing lady, you know, like turtle, exploding heart, like not very helpful information. But I had a lot of missed calls also. A lot of them from the Chabon family. Michael Chabon, and he has 4 children, and they had all tried to call me. So I was like, okay, Michael Chabon, he won the Pulitzer Prize in 2001. He'll tell me what weird gag is going on. And I called him, and he was like, oh my God, Andy. And I said, Michael, what is going on? And he said, do you not know? Am I the one who's going to tell you? And so he said, you won the Pulitzer Prize. And he's like, you won like 4 hours ago, and you're just finding out? And so I called my mother, and she was already very drunk. So I broke into the Baroness's basement, and I caught up with her. But it was, then I called everybody. Like Michael Cunningham called me. He won the Pulitzer Prize for the hours, and like I got messages from everyone who had won in fiction, like Donna Tartt and Jhumpa Lahiri, and all these people wrote me saying congratulations, and it was really incredibly moving to feel part of a community that, like, all writers feel like outsiders. All of us do. And there are very few moments where you feel embraced by everyone at once, and I did. So that was the long version. Starts with a pug, ends with a prize.
Well, congratulations. Our little book club really enjoyed your book.
Yay!
And I just wonder if after the win you had any, shall we say, performance anxiety about what you might do next?
That is an intimate question, ma'am.
I not meant that way.
No, I think that's not inappropriate. Yeah, well, you know what? The problem was not, I mean, I had successfully written many novels, so I knew I could do it again. I wasn't worried about that. The problem was that I wrote less when I felt like a total failure. You can kind of tell when you read the book. Because I just, like, I could not, like, scrape together money to just get by. That's why I was working in Italy with a pug. And why the book is about trying to scrape together money to get by. Even though it looks glamorous, he goes around the world, he's actually taking free trips. He's not spending his own money. And so I wrote less because I was like, well, screw it, no one's going to read my book, so it doesn't matter what I put in this. I can put in any personal detail I want to, and no one will ever read it. And look, here we are. And it's hard to get back to that state of total innocence. And I'm going to do whatever I want, because, especially because I was dealing with a character that now a lot of people were very attached to. And if I mishandled this character, I would have hell to pay. So that was the stress of having to forget that people were going to read it in order to write Less is Lost. And so I had to do things like sit down and be like, okay, Andy, what humiliating part of your life did you leave out of the last book? And I was like, your first kiss. So I put that in this book, and it's so mortifying. I don't even want to talk about it. But I was like, let's just be totally vulnerable again. Let's see if I can do it. Yeah.
Are there any plans of making a movie or anything about this? Because when I'm reading it, I'm thinking that. Who would be playing this part?
What a charming question. I think I'm not allowed to announce anything, but I would say it is not currently developed for screen. If you were a gay man, I don't know anything about you, sir, what art form would you choose? I don't know. Let's see what happens. Let's see I think we'll find out something in the next year. It seems like things are progressing finally for whatever art form it is. But I had to make a choice, and I tried to get back to the innocent, sorry, my ear just went weird. The innocence I felt when I was writing less of like, let's just do whatever's fun. And so I made the choice not for money, but for what it sounded fun to me. Because I was like, if I do it for money, I'll just get like my heart broken. Some crappy thing will happen. So if I do it, it's never going to happen anyway. So let's have it be a bomb in the most fun way. I'm sure it will be. But people often ask me who I imagine playing Arthur Less, and I always have the same answer. Wait, now I've forgotten his name. God, it was the weird ear thing that happened. Daniel Craig. I just think he'd be good. It would be a surprise, right? Well, we saw him play that sort of foghorn leghorn detective, and so clearly he can do anything, and I think that would be fun, more than Neil Patrick Harris, or a more obvious choice. I was like, Daniel Craig. I don't know if he can sing.
Any other questions? All the way in the back.
Are you from the Netherlands?
I am, ma'am. That did happen to me. It happened to me in the South over and over, that people thought I was from the Netherlands. And I think it might be because I was kind of trying to put on a Southern accent. And maybe it came across a little weird or something to people. But I think it's more that it's what they were picking up is a homosexual cadence. And like a weird, I mean, I didn't dress like this, but you can see, like, I think people often ask, in Italy they have a different way of doing it. They ask whether I'm British. I get that all the time. So, yeah, I mean, when someone asks that, I'm like, I know what you're asking. You know, it's like when they say, you remind me of my cousin. And I'm like, I know something about your cousin you don't know.
Hi. I hate to pull out a kind of generic question, but I am a writing grad at SCAD, so I am curious, what does your writing process look like? And like, do you have any advice for someone wanting to publish a book?
I think it's a great question. I will tell you my writing process, but you should not copy it unless it works for you, you know? Like, you have to figure out what yours is, and also it's going to change over time. Because I think when I was your age, my writing process was sit down at 10 p.m. with a pot of coffee and a bottle of whiskey and a bag of potato chips and work until 4 in the morning. And that is not what I do now. Because it turns out that the talent is one thing, but then there's something else that's very hard to discover that makes you a writer, which is some kind of grit and fortitude, which it's very hard to tell who's going to have it, to be able to write every day, no matter what. And I don't have kids or a real job, but many do, and they still manage to make books. And I think it's that. So what I do is I wake up like 6:30, and I don't read the news for 2 hours or emails. And I go straight into whatever book. I have a pot of coffee, and that works great for me because I'm not distracted by the outer world. Because like, I'm not going to save the world by reading the news sooner. All these emails can wait until 8:30, you know, and it's what got me through the pandemic and the news cycles and everything, was to wake up and go straight to the work. Now, not everyone can do that if you have kids or a real job. But I think that the thing is to do something every day, even if it's a small thing. I'm sure that's good advice, because that's the actual talent. Because I think when you're in a grad program, you're amazed that someone can write something so good overnight with a bottle of whiskey, but like, that's not how you write a novel. That's how you write a story for workshop. It's like a reality show where you were like, you have 5 minutes and 5 ingredients, and you're like, that tastes awfully good for 5 minutes and 5 ingredients, but I wouldn't order it in a restaurant, you know? And it's the restaurant is the real job. That sound too weird? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Grit.
We have time for one more question.
Oh, but that feels like pressure.
And it's you. It better be good.
It's not. Lower your expectations. I love your writing. I felt like at the end of, like, each word is like candy, and I feel like at the end of the last, I was like so sad it was almost over. But my question is about the second one. Was there a real life woman who said that her life mantra was no, no, no?
That is a great question. If you haven't read the book, there's a character in the Southwest, like a kooky California character, who says that her mantra is no, 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 K-N-O-W, no, no. Like, one should never experience a no. No, no, no. No, no, no. And she tries to teach it to Arthur Less, and he's like, no, no, no. She's like, no. No, no, no. No, no, no. No. No, no, no. No, no, no. No. Yeah, it's a song. Here's where it came from. I wrote it in a novel called Story of a Marriage, and I thought I'd written the most brilliant sentence in the world. And the next morning, I was like, that is a piece of crap. That is the stupidest thing you have ever. I wrote it seriously. I'm like, we should no, no, no. But I saved it, and I thought, what is the most ridiculous thing you could say? And I was like, I think you already said it. Look within yourself. So that's what it came from. Yeah, me. Thank you, Savannah, so much for having me. And thank you again for the book.
Okay, so Andrew, I think he should have been a stand-up comedian. That could be his next career. Thank you very much for joining us. Don't forget to donate in the yellow buckets on your way out so we can keep Festival Saturday free. Thank you.